Okay, Roger,
Yes, Gary.
you may begin so you can get to your meeting.
Gary, thank you so much, and thank you for being such a gentleman and a scholar. Ladies and gents, my colleagues at BHG, thank you for inviting me this morning, and Gary, for allowing me to go first. We have our leadership meetings once a month, and it happens to be this Wednesday at 10 o'clock. So thank you for letting me go first. Much appreciated. The goal for this morning is that rising home prices continue to fuel growing home equity, and what are the implications of that? And can Generation Z, which is following behind the millennials, can they afford to buy a home? And after this meeting, I will send on to Gary lots of backup slides that you won't see that are in the background here. But it's again for you to have great talking points so that you, the professional realtor, a solutionist, a gift to the community, have great talking points to control the narrative. And a little reminder that to be able to explain the market is to unravel the Gordian knot, right? And most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening, but great agents can explain what's happening. And I enjoy having graphics. This is something I created, and I don't suggest that you use it. It's just to build an image, because an image often can help me explain stuff. There's a battle royale going on in the marketplace between inventory and affordability. And you can see as realtors and builders on one side battling to get the inventory, and the affordability on the other side with buyers struggling with that. So who's going to win out? But in the meantime, prices continue to go up and up and up, right? And so this is a comment here from Dr. Selma Hepp, the chief economist at CoreLogic. And I won't read the entire thing, but rising home prices continue to fuel growing home equity. And that is the marquee for most sellers. They've got an enormous amount of equity. And the typical homeowner has notable home equity reserves that can be tapped into if needed. And you can see whether you're looking at quarter over quarter, where there's a 1.5% growth in home prices, and just quarter over quarter. When it comes to year over year, we're looking at 6.5% national average. When it's over 5 years, almost 60% growth in home equity. And certainly, if you've looked at it since quarter one, 1991, there's been on average in California a 317% growth in home equity. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how Joe Public builds wealth, right? And this slide I find absolutely amazing. There's been 48 consecutive quarters of positive price appreciation, 48. So you have all these naysayers, prices are going to come down. They've been saying this for 4 or 5 years. In fact, 1 in 4 Americans, 1 in 4 people that you know think that the prices are going to come down. And the data just does not support that. And you can see the home equity gains just year over year as of the end of quarter 4, 2023. In California, just almost $50,000 just in the state of California. And certainly where you work in Sonoma, it's a lot higher than just 50,000. So Americans are sitting on tremendous amount of equity. And look at that stat, almost 68% have paid off their mortgages or have at least 50% equity. So this is how Joe Public builds wealth. And if you look at the year over year percentage change in price, from February 23 to February 24, it was 5.5% change in price. Look what's projected for next year. February 24 to February 25, it's forecast to go by 3.1%, which is just returning, ladies and gentlemen, to a average growth, what it's normally done for the last 75 years, this growth. And so this is, the source here is CoreLogic. Prices are predicted to continue to go up, which puts everyone to buy a home under pressure for affordability. But the people who own a home, who are in good standing, who can get into a home, begin to build massive wealth. And look at this definitive statement from your chief economist, Lawrence Yun. look how definitive it is. Prices will remain firm and will not decline on a national level. And this is a comment only of 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's how definitive they believe, because the builders on average are 13 or 14 years behind the population growth. So there's a massive supply and demand. And so as wages go up and people have got equity, they're going to continue to buy homes. Inventory is short and it drives prices up continuously. Look at the price appreciation of homes over the last 60 years. It just continues to go up. And so I always feel terrible trying to force that comment that it's always a good time to buy a home in the United States, because for some people, home ownership is maybe not right for them. But for the purposes of stability and growing wealth, it's a pretty good, solid statement to say for wealth building, it's pretty good to own a home in the United States. And the mirror image of this, of course, is the increase in rents over the last 60 years. And to be able to get out of the rent trap is huge, and to be able to build wealth. And look at this, the gap in the net worth is widening. This is the gap between renters and homeowners on average. The difference, and growing even wider in 2022. Look at the difference in net wealth between renters and homeowners, and it's much bigger even in the areas that we work. These are obviously national as well. So by the time a homeowner gets to the age of 60, they are on average 40 to 45 times wealthier than a renter. And again, homeowners 40 times more wealthy. And of course, it gets even higher when people get to the age of 60 years old. If you look at this bar graph here, you can see across all income ranges, annual income ranges per household, your primary residence, for the most part, makes up the majority of your net worth. All right. Obviously, in these income brackets, people often have stocks and bonds and things, and so there's other things that kick in here. But for the most part, across the country, your equity comes from your primary residence. Again, all of these slides Gary will have and will distribute. Can you take these? Can you laminate them? Can you sit down and control the narrative? Can you unravel the Gordian knot that if you're in good standing, it's probably a good time to get in? And this comment here from the Veterans United, in fact, many renters are drawn to smaller homes because they are less expensive and can start building equity quickly, and builders are starting to build smaller homes. So getting people into smaller homes or readjusting what they want to get into a smaller home requires less deposit, but they get in and they start. So these are just conversations. To go to the next part of this little chat this morning, ladies and gents, can Gen Z afford to buy a home? So just a little reminder here. Look at the US population by generation. You can see here the silent generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, the millennials, and there is Gen Z, closely followed behind. So people anywhere currently from the age of 10 or 12 years old to the age of about 27 make up Generation Z. And you can see right behind millennials, they make up 20.88% of the US population. So it's this huge number that are right behind the biggest buying bulk in the country currently, which is millennials. Gen Z is right behind them, ladies and gentlemen. But this is what bothers them. This is the worry. They have watched since 2019 through to now. The average, this is across the nation, this is national figures. The average monthly mortgage payment has gone from $1,054 to $2,040. And of course, much higher in the regions that we work. And so this is the concern for Gen Z. Can they actually afford to buy a home? And there was Bankrate conducted this survey recently of Gen Z respondents, and 63% said they intended to own a home and be part of the American dream. But as you can see from Chase, this comment, Will Gen Z be able to afford houses? The short answer and good news is probably yes. And despite some potential trepidations surrounding home ownership, first-time home buyers who were born between 97 and 2012 may have some cause for optimism. So let's just jump in there just a little deeper here. And you can see the path to Gen Z home ownership may have its own share of challenges, but that doesn't stop Gen Z, nicknamed the Zoomers, by the way, interesting, from buying homes. And in fact, Gen Z real estate trends are pointing in an optimistic direction. Here's why. According to the recent study from a major real estate brokerage, I think it was Redfin that did it, about 30% of 25-year-olds own their own homes in 2022, 2 to 3% ahead of both millennials and Gen Xers at the same time. So there's no doubt Gen Z is determined to own a home, but they've got their challenges. And here, and I won't spend too much time here, here are the challenges for Gen Z with its home prices that soared during COVID, inflation, which makes expenses even more for them, so they battle to save even more. Competition, student loan debt, credit score requirements, all these things are challenging Gen Z. But Bankrate said 30% of Gen Z home buyers move directly from their family member's home to a home of their own. In other words, Gen Zs stay home much longer. They live in their families' basements much longer. Why? It allows them to save and beat the costs of inflation. And then they move from their parents' homes into their own home, but much smaller homes. The demand is for much, much smaller homes currently. So obviously some tips for Gen Z buyers, way beyond the scope of this discussion, but upping your financial literacy, starting to save, keeping an open mind and doing your research. And this is where a great professional realtor like yourself that can explain the market forms a tight bond with their lender. People like Jana Menina, people like Steve Gwenza, Deanna Martinez Stein, these people can help you educate those Gen Zs on what is available for down payment assistance programs and how they can get into homes and break down these myth understandings that people have in their heads. So, Gary, thank you again. I'm going to just go forward here. A reminder, most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening, and great agents can explain what's happening. And so as I send these slides out, my colleagues, you will see there are so many backup slides behind what I've just showed you. That was a 10,000-foot view just to get the creative juices flowing. And so the final slide here is, I'm getting a feedback here. Look at this comment here from Ernest Shackleton.
Hold on a second.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Gary. Look at this comment here. This is the last slide. Men wanted for hazardous journeys, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, but honor and recognition in case of success. No one is asking you to go on an expedition with Ernest Shackleton. With a little bit of focus, dedication, confidence in yourself, belief in yourself, leading with your why, and asking questions of your buyers and sellers. What would owning your next best home mean to you? Or what would owning a home mean to you? Hear their fears, put it aside, and just be a general practitioner of real estate. Go many levels deep. You don't have to go on a journey with Ernest Shackleton. Go on to a journey of being a doctor of real estate, a general practitioner. Hear them, be confident, teach, tailor, take control, and your life will be just fabulous. Calm waters are approaching. Thank you, Gary. You there, Gary?
Yep, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good meeting. I know you need to brush up.
I appreciate that, and the slides are on their way. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Okay, I think we can turn the screen off because I'm not doing anything on here. Okay. Well, how we doing? Good. I like that breeze. Welcome to our smaller home. Yeah, smaller homes in the gold. So, I don't know if you've all met Alia. Alia is our steady right-hand person. Her schedule right now is Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. She'll be here 9 to 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she is working closely with Kylie. She doesn't have Kylie's set of graphic skills, so she's not going to be making flyers and things like that. She's going to be doing more, you know, keeping up our roster, doing our DRE, back office stuff, and more admin stuff that used to fall into Ashley's camp. That'll be more some of the stuff Alia, but you can certainly speak to her about your marketing requirements, and she'll coordinate with Kylie to see that they get done and prepared. So just some quirks about this space. If you haven't been here, the restroom's out the back door. Don't lock it, or you need a key to get back in. So, you know, this door, we're just leaving that open. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stations available to us agents when we drop in. So far, Ray has been dropping in a little bit, and I've been dropping in a little bit, and I haven't seen anyone else, but you know, these are drop-in desks, not permanent desks, so we aren't, you know, we're not going to build up our history of belongings that we've done over the last 20 years over in the other buildings. So that's kind of the plan. The Syrup, Sonoma Syrup is in the front, plus 2 other subtenants, and our nonprofits are back here, and World Hunger and Seeds of Learning. So we have our subtenants, and of course Jagged's here all the time, and they're helping you know, maintain the place and give it a presence. Conference room is here and available. I don't know about that big TV, whether we're going to install that on the wall or not, but we'll probably put up a smaller version at some point. One of the smaller TVs. That thing just seems oppressive. Let's see. There's 2 banks of lights right now. We've got the single lights on. There's a lot of natural light, which is great. After we're used to our most of us having cubbies in the other places without much natural light. And then there's another switch that'll light this place up like a candle. So if you're in here, you know, just choose your lighting. Jack likes the low light. And copiers back here. The internet is it's a BHG RE. And it's either 2.4 or 5.0 if you pull it up on your network. The 5.0 is the faster one, but it has a shorter range. I think it goes to maybe to the front door. The 2.4 is fine for most of our activities, unless you're watching a movie or something. You probably don't need the 5.0. And then the password is the same as it's always been, the 5A, 4B, 3C, so forth, and Alia has that information if you need it.
Are the keys all fit the doors? Our old keys?
Yeah,
fit these
it's
doors?
tested because they rekeyed it to our key, but I've found that some keys still don't work, and they need I need to take them over to the key guy across the street, and he's got to sand them down or something. But so try your old key, it should work. Yeah.
And
And
is
it
there an
only worked,
alarm?
only worked this front door,
Is there an alarm?
no alarm.
No.
What about scanning?
Scanning the whole copier
Okay.
shebang is here, so.
Okay, don't put that.
Same, it's all set up and you can scan, you can.
Programmed to scan to. like,
It's
what
we
is
got our
it?
same address, book that was in there. It's the one computer, it's the copier from over there.
Yeah.
So the address book is in there.
And you have one office computer, I mean, just.
This one and this one. There's two office computers. So you can come in and use either one. They're both up and operating and network to the printer.
The mail folders. have
Yeah, the mail
moved.
folders are in this back cabinet in the top. So check your mail. We need to get you a mailbox, and there was somebody else that needs a mailbox. So I guess it was just you.
Okay.
You're getting returned postcards from your mail.
Bye.
Always, they always come back, there's always a certain percentage come back, right? But if you don't send them, none come back, right? Kendra knows that, she does a lot of mailing.
Yeah, ton of them back. People move and they don't tell me.
Yeah. Any other questions about the place? I'm gonna get I've ordered some furniture for the front deck.
Is there a coffee maker?
Yeah, there's a coffee maker, and when you go through here, there's the little refrigerator and the coffee maker. And we've got a Brita water filter that we keep in the fridge. And we should use that in the coffee machine. And to fill it, it actually doesn't fit in the bathroom, that's our only sink. It doesn't fit under the sink, so I have a cup in there and you just fill it up and put it back in the fridge.
The bathroom shared with other tenants.
No, the bathroom is ours. They have their own, actually. There's two bathrooms back there. The engineering company in the back, they have a passage door with a lock on it and so forth, so. There's this one guy who hangs out on the corner here, I don't know, he's exiled or something, but, you'll run into him probably in the hallway. But otherwise, they're back behind that door.
So is there exterior access to that rear area?
No,
So the only access to those bathrooms is through there.
yeah. Yeah. You need to come in from another direction.
No,
Yeah,
just trying to figure out the configuration.
yeah, well, if you haven't been here, just, so we have a little cabinet back there with all the supplies. And where are our other supplies like, letterhead and envelopes and things?
There's some of it back there, and then there's other stuff on the side of the copy machine,
Okay,
and then that'll be like stocked up in the cabinets.
Right.
There, but there's stuff now.
okay.
For
Be
all
there.
our,
Hmm?
for our CMAs and stuff.
Yeah, we haven't got I don't think we have the binder machine.
It is
Oh,
out
it's
there by the
back?
coffee machine,
Okay.
at the end of the table, yeah.
Okay. So the binding machine is back there. And the supplies for that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to ask if the Wi-Fi password was still the same or is it different?
The Wi-Fi password is the same.
Oh, okay, oh, great, okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? All right, if you have any, let me know, and Ali will be here all day today, so you check with her. So just on my agenda, the NAR settlement, they reached a preliminary agreement with the plaintiffs in that lawsuit. It's not really going to be fully approved till November, I think. And originally the settlement called for some July date that we would institute these rules. I think that's gotten pushed back to September, though my guess is that, locally Bayris will adopt that sooner rather than later. Bayris has got to decide whether they're going to opt into the NAR settlement or not. So that's still an issue there. Um, this group did a survey of, after the settlements, they did this survey, early last week. And the question was, have you heard or read about the recent legal settlement agreement between the National Association of Realtors that would change practices around the real estate industry? 37% of the respondents said yes, and 63% said no. So it's, at least at that time, and when all this publicity was happening, really just still just a small percentage, 37%, about a little over a third of the folks kind of even know about this issue. So,
That's the general public.
yeah. And I think, what I said in last week's meeting, Thursday, was we've done a good job of, making these charts about how the process works. This is a selling process, and you pre-listing appointments at a price and time frame, develop. So we have this ladder of steps we do as listing agents, and it's part of our listing package, that we tell the seller, what we're gonna do. What's been missing from here is how much we're gonna charge and how we're gonna get paid. That was always kind of, it's in the listing agreement, but otherwise it's swept under the carpet. Nobody likes to talk about their salary and their what they get paid, right? So, that's the impetus of these lawsuits, is that even though the parties signed the listing agreement and they, recognize that their agent was going to get paid, they didn't realize it was coming out of their proceeds, or, they just didn't understand. So that's the claims. We have the same kind of charge for home buyers, and say, okay, we're gonna take you through this process, looking at homes and blah, 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 pre-qualification. Again, we never said how we're gonna get paid. So that's the key, that we're gonna need to disclose how we're gonna get paid. Is it the sellers? Is it gonna come out of the seller's proceeds in escrow? Or are you gonna pay me directly? I've got a friend in Florida who's selling a home. He has large capital gains on it. He wants to pay the other side so he can have it take a deduction for that. So, but then we have sellers and say, well, I see I don't have to pay now, right? So we've got to deal with those things.
But the buyers have always paid because they gave money to the seller.
Exactly.
So that hasn't changed a bit.
No, the underlying process of how a transaction occurs is not gonna change. So somewhere, we're gonna have to, I'll read this quote here that was interesting. Last week, one of the best agents I know, a 20-year veteran, got very real with me. I think we're screwed. Buyer agency is going away. I just don't see a path for getting paid on the buyer's side. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's one agent's opinion, experienced agent's opinion. So what NAR has done in making the settlement is also define some of the things that were unknown in what we saw about the settlement. So these are all on an NAR Q&A, FAQ, frequently asked questions. If you go to NAR website and go to the FAQ, these show up there. So this is number 46 of the frequently asked questions. The practice change requiring written agreements with buyers is triggered by two conditions. It only applies to the MLS participants working with buyers, and it's triggered by touring a home. What is meant to be working with the buyer? That's the question. So, first of all, if you aren't an MLS participant, none of these rules apply to you anyway. But if you are, assume we're all MLS participants and we're working with a buyer, this is what the language means. This is the definition. The working with language is intended to distinguish MLS participants who provide brokerage services to a buyer, such as identifying potential properties, arranging for the buyer to tour a property, performing or facilitating negotiations on behalf of a buyer, presenting offers by the buyer or other services for the buyer. From MLS participants who simply market their services or just talk to a buyer, like in an open house or by providing an unrepresented buyer access to a house they have listed. So an MLS participant is working only as an agent or when the MLS participant is working only as an agent or a sub-agent of the seller, then the participant is not working with the buyer. In that scenario, an agreement is not required because the participant is performing work for the seller and not the buyer. So if you're a listing agent holding a open house and you aren't trying to pick up buyers, which is why would you do the open house anyway, right? But if you're just doing it because you told the seller you'd have an open house and you aren't interested in dual agency, which some people aren't, then you don't have to have an agreement with the people walking. But if you are an agent holding an open house and you're expecting to work with those buyers that aren't always already represented by an agent, then you will need some kind of an agreement. What agreement? Remember, Broker Risk Management said they'd have a one-page form for people to sign up with at an open house. We don't have that yet. I imagine they will discuss it in next Monday's spring legal update. I sent around the link to register for that. I'll send it around again. So the next legal update is Monday, May 6th at 9:30. BRM, so pre-register for that. So anyway, you can see this definition is kind of. Yes,
I just had a question, if it's not interrupting too much.
yes, right,
So if you're a listing agent holding an open house and you're not necessarily trying to pick up a buyer.
right.
But they ask for disclosures and saying, would you send those to me? Would that be like a trigger point to say,
No, that's still working for the seller.
all right, I just didn't know what.
No, and under the definition, that's still, you're working for the seller. Someone's asked for something, you're sending it to. If you're working only for the seller, then you aren't gonna need any kind of this relationship with the buyer.
So before they even walk in the door and you're trying to get them as a buyer, you have to, don't come in until you sign this paper. So, I mean, seriously.
Or maybe,
Well-
maybe the agent is if there's real interest or. something.
Yeah, before I go any further, I'm gonna have to have you sign this paper.
Well, I mean, you can start out,
Got an
you,
agent.
you can start out working
I've already
solely.
got
with-
an agent.
Well, then you don't have to sign this paper, I guess, but they're gonna all say that. I got an agent, even if I don't have an agent, just, so you know.
Is the buyer representation agreement.
When we're seriously working with a buyer, we're gonna need a buyer representation agreement, yes.
Now, when we see in multiple listing, we're seeing still today 2.5%
Yeah.
commission stated.
Yes,
So that means that there's an agreement that the seller is going to pay 2.5% to the
Correct.
buyer's agent.
correct.
And we still need buyer's representation agreement, even though that's in MLS, correct? Or no?
Not legally yet.
Yeah.
But we will.
Yeah.
And that number won't be there for, I mean, maybe in 2 months, probably. We'll be no longer publishing that in the MLS, which is stupid because we're gonna publish it elsewhere, but not in the MLS.
I was gonna say the Redfin sites are still publishing.
Why won't it be published in the MLS?
Because that's what they have agreed to. The
So
seller-
seller-
we
settle
don't
the
know
lawsuit.
what the seller's willing to pay?
Yeah, you will know. You'll call the listing agent, and say this is seller paying a buyer's agent commission. And then you're gonna know how to work with your buyer to request it using that SPFF form or whatever it is called.
If they say no commission, then you have to do,
Well, you can still ask for it.
Yeah.
It's like doing a request for repairs. You know, always have the right to ask for the seller to pay that because the buyer needs their extra money to put on the down payment. So maybe they increase their price by, 2.5% to pay the commission or something. You know,
where did the cash settlement come from? That they create the millions, the multi-millions.
Your dues.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, well, no, it's reserves. Actually, that's one of the frequently asked questions. I didn't really look at the answer. But my guess it comes from cash reserves they have on hand. I mean, our own MLS, I'm the treasurer. So we have about $4 million in reserves. And we just paid $150,000 bill to the attorneys representing us in the suit down in Marin County. So, we have a separate, the 4 million, is separate from another, what we call insurance reserve, which is where we're getting this money, because this claim is not, or this lawsuit's not covered by the insurance that the association or the Bayers carries. So I think NAR has a certain amount of reserves, but this is going to pretty much deplete them. Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say a couple of things. Are we seeing yet an MLS on the cooperating commission, like under 2.5%? I mean, or anybody, when you're looking up a list, you're seeing that there's like no cooperating commission being offered? Is that showing?
we know of one broker whose practice has been for the last year up in Lake County not to offer a commission to the buyer's agent. Now, their excuse was they're getting ahead of these lawsuits, they don't want to be sued, so they would not offer. So how do they tell you to handle it? Put it in your office. So,
Yeah, the other thing is, I've been, holding the Temelec property open, for some time so far. It's really tricky, with my own communications with buyers. Normally speaking, God had a real different way of doing it. Somebody would walk in, she'd say, here's the house, look around, if you have any questions, talk to me. She wasn't into any particular, trying to nail the buyer. If somebody did come to her, then she'd be very artfully and ferreting out some information, with a great list of open-ended questions, get the person talking and figure out, what was what. There you find out, you got an agent, or she figured that out pretty directly through a good line of inquiry. Me, I'm more clumsy. I mean, I would go and say, are you working with an agent? And oftentimes, they would say no, and then at the end, after you tell them everything under the sun, you find out that, in fact, I do have this friend, my house is now for sale in Marin, and they're likely gonna represent me. So I think, to the extent that anybody's holding open houses, I'm not seeing that many of them. Certainly nobody's advertising them other than online. You don't see any ads to speak of in local newspapers anymore. So that's pretty much gone by the wayside. I've been the only ad in the PD for Sonoma Valley for the last, 4 or 5 weeks.
for open housing.
Yeah, for open houses.
Yeah,
So it's really gone away. So I guess what I'm trying to say for the greater good, it's just, buyers don't understand. And, when you're talking with somebody, and I always just take the place where I'm representing the seller. So I'm just gonna give the seller whatever I would give essentially the buyer's agent or the buyer. I'm not gonna talk about seller motivation. I'm not gonna talk anything about who the seller is, what they've done, anything like that. I just keep this firewall up between that because that's confidential information. And I'm only talking about the house. I can talk about, okay, it's got a new furnace, it's got this, it's got that. Here's the community. I can talk about the community. But I'm really I'm just trying to sell the buyer on the house and the community, regardless of whether I'm gonna be ever considered throwing it off or be asked for
Yeah.
rent. But then sometimes it flips on you, and the guy goes, well, I really don't like this house, but would you send me other listings in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Now it becomes in this horrible mess. Now you gotta go like, now what do I do with this guy? Because now I'm gonna have to become an agent. So in an open house environment, it's really a hard thing to do to start, by the way, do you know about the NAR? Do you know about how we have to now work in this tree and how buyer, how you ever work with a buyer? That's that's gonna be, a lot of scripting and coaching.
We'll
That's
learn.
gonna take a lot because it's really awkward now. Because
Yeah.
before we always had, I know I can figure this out. Now, not so much.
Well, we used to use terms like, don't worry about it, the seller's gonna pay for my,
Yeah.
for me, which was, that was never accurate, because what Leo said, the buyer was always paying it anyway.
Right.
Brian, did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, as far as back to the listing the commission,
Yeah,
have they figured out how because I think I listened to CAR's thing, and they were talking about, like, it can be in the marketing material. But then I think broker risk management was saying, don't put it in there. So had they figured out how to do that? You know, how to advertise what the commission's gonna be?
My understanding is that the agreement, and I don't think I have this one here. That it can be listed in our marketing materials on our website. Certainly, someone calls you and you're the listing agent, someone calls you, you can tell them on the phone. I will learn.
I thought
more.
it was during the broker risk management that they said
Well,
not to do
we'll
that.
learn more on Monday about what they're suggesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because maybe you could do something under the private remarks. I don't know how far you can go.
No.
I mean, not listing a thing, but like call me for further details on it.
Right, yeah, you put comments like that, you know, it's very clear that we can put in buyer concessions.
Right.
In the remarks. But the commission's not considered a buyer concession. Okay, that's a commission. So buyer concessions is, you know, the seller to credit buyer $5,000 for painting. Or roof towards a roof credit, you know, those kind of things can go in.
Right.
Let's just follow with a few more of these definitions. What does it mean to tour a home? Written buyer agreements are required before a buyer tours a home for sale listed on the MLS. Touring a home means when the buyer and or the MLS participant or other agent at the direction of the MLS participant working with the buyer enters the house. You know, these are pretty simple definitions. This includes when the MLS participant or the other agent at the direction of the MLS participant working with the buyer enters the home to provide a live virtual tour to the buyer not physically present. So if you're going in there and you're showing the client on the phone, that's touring a home. A home, defining a home here, means a residential property consisting of not less than one nor more than 4 residential dwelling units. So this is going to apply to single family 1 to 4.
So if you're showing someone 4 properties, you have to have 4 agreements for each property?
No, you just have one agreement with the buyer. Now, there is that form that allows you to list the properties that you're showing them, which is a useful form, and broker risk management, I'm sure will go over that on Monday.
What if the buyer wants you to show them a home and you wanna have them sign the buyer broker agreement, and they say, well, I've got an agent I'm working with.
You have to say, well.
You should ask your agent to
you
know.
Well, yeah, you can ask for a copy of their agreement. Because some of the agreements are not exclusive.
So there's non-exclusive buyer broker agreement, what is the point?
Exactly. But, you know, it's like taking an open listing. You know, some people do it. The seller could, you know, it's not obligated to pay. The buyer in a non-exclusive. Now, also, all of the buyer broker agreements, the way that they're written currently, provide that either party can cancel within 30 days notice. So, I mean, that would be an answer. Well, if you don't want to work with that agent anymore, you have to cancel that agreement, either mutually or, you know, by giving 30 days notice, and then I can work with you.
They wrote a song about this, you know.
Huh?
They wrote a song about this. It's clear as mud, but it covers the ground, and the confusion make the brain go round.
Hey? Are written buyer agreements required when listing agents talk with the buyer on behalf of the seller only? No. If you're working with, as a seller, you know, as a seller's representative, then you aren't gonna need an agreement with everybody who walks through the house.
Be a listing agent, there's an answer.
All right, so this is one answer to dealing with,
What if somebody's holding an open house for another? So you're not the company is then considered still the listed agent.
well, that they refer to sub-agent. Again, if the sub-agent, you know, Cherie's holding an open house for Sheila. If she's only operating as the seller's representative, giving out information on the home, giving out disclosures, then she doesn't need agreements with those buyers. But Cherie's doing that in hopes of picking up a buyer.
Right.
So she's going to, you know, be asking the buyer certain questions, you know, are you already working with an agent? If this house doesn't work for you, you wanna see another house, they have slightly different motives than you might as a listing agent. They- So, all right, so, this is an article on stop justifying your fee. Start showing the cost of not using you. Okay, so coming at this issue of the buyer paying for our, buyer's agent's commission. We aren't there to justify, the better approach is not to be justifying our fee, but to show the cost of not using an agent. The things that you can get into, the trouble you can get into. So. These are, according to this writer, 3 immutable laws, okay? Unchangeable laws. People don't buy what you do, they buy what you think. So they're looking for your experience, your knowledge, your resources. For those of you who don't have experience and knowledge yet, your resources of how you will support them in this biggest purchase that they're likely to ever make. So it's not what you do, it's how you think and how you're going to help them that way. People bet on systems over personalities or charisma. So, personality and charisma will get you so far. People recognize you as a bon vivant. Vivant.
Bon vivant.
But, that doesn't mean they're gonna trust you to represent them in buying this asset they're trying to buy. So they want to see that you have systems, and that your company, your brokerage has systems to go through this process. You have a transaction code. You have a systematic approach to how you help them buy a house. And then the third immutable law is that people trust fiduciaries, not salespeople.
That's true.
Mhm.
So remember, in the very basic training I've always done around the agency disclosure. It's the difference between a fiduciary and a non-fiduciary. And and this is what I'll say to people that, aren't familiar with that. I'll say, a fiduciary is like me taking care of my niece's child's trust fund. Or me being on the board of the hospital. Where I have a fiduciary duty to use my utmost care and experience to assist you. And that's what we're doing as agents. We aren't just salespeople, we're fiduciaries. So that's, there's one stock brokerage company that makes a point of that all the time, that they're fiduciaries. They aren't just stock salespeople. All right, and this article concludes that you already have the secret sauce. The secret sauce of working with these buyers is the same secret sauce you did when you went out and got your very first listing. All right, so go back and recall when you went on your first listing appointment and you sat down with that party, never having listed a property before, and they're interviewing 6 different agents from 6 different brokerages, and they choose you. And what was that secret sauce that made them choose you? It was what you thought, and it's that they felt you were going to give them the most care. So you have that secret sauce already. You got that listing at one point. You do the same with the buyers. Okay. Okay. Just a little market, any questions on the NAR settlement? We'll keep getting more information, tune in Monday, we'll get more information, and we'll all be learning as we goes along. As Roger said, prices year over year are surprisingly high, more than had been forecast. We've been thinking the prices would be flat through the year. On a nationwide basis, they're up anywhere between 2% and 5%. that could moderate a little because the interest rates are kind of pushing back. So when interest rates go from 7 to 7.5, it's, so many people can't afford to buy a home. But so far this year, sales are 6% ahead year over year. Median prices up 4.7%. There is a higher, slightly higher price reduction ratio. That is, there are more buyers, sellers reducing their prices before they sell than there were a year ago. It's about
What's the number?
32.5 nation. And locally, it's averaging around 30 also. The fact that the inventory is growing and the seller, you know, who hasn't sold their home yet wants to sell, that means, you know, likely they're gonna reduce the price, so we're gonna see more of that.
Do you
Now,
think the
in
answer,
certain markets, like in Florida, 50% of the homes take a sales production price reduction before they sell.
do you think the insurance is playing havoc on our pricing because it's so expensive for insurance now? Do you think
You
that
tell
maybe
me.
the pricing should or will come down because of insurance? A little bit?
I think it's a factor.
Hmm?
I think
Yeah, I think
insurance,
so too. I mean, when you're
But I
paying
think it's-
12,000 a year for insurance,
Yeah, from 2,000 to 15,000, same property,
yeah,
year after year after year, that's,
it has an
it
impact.
brings your value down, right?
I'm learning more about insurance than I ever wanted. I've been talking to so many insurance agents, just because even for my own property.
Right.
For trying to get insurance on listings,
I know.
it's a real education, and they're in the same boat. You know, trying to figure it out, and it's this secondary market of insurers that they have to rely on. So there's just multi-layers.
Have we turned those same lawyers that went to NAR?
Right.
They've been sued already, I think. They've already been down that path.
But I think you're gonna have to just allow more time for buyers to find out about getting insurance. I think that's
Okay.
gonna be.
Yeah, we have no good
Yeah, I
answer.
had a real close call with the last one, but he couldn't find it, I mean, and it's on the flatland, it's not in the fire zone, I mean, he just couldn't find it because of not in two.
Right, and also sometimes how it's mapped.
Yeah.
It's like with so many miles of a fire. I mean,
Right.
There's so many things they have to do now.
Yeah, and the insurance companies apparently all have their own maps.
Right,
Which differ from,
They
yeah,
do.
differ from insurance company to insurance company.
and it's which percentage of risk you're in.
Pre-existing
In
conditions.
So, Florida and Texas are kind of overloaded with inventory. They have 20% of all the listings, but only 16% of the population. So there's a heavy skew in those southern states, Florida, Texas.
That's a lot of second home.
I
Florida,
don't
big
know,
time.
so many second homes, not in Texas for sure.
No. Florida,
I think it's, affordability, you know, motivations,
the snowbirds that come from the north during the winter.
you know,
Tax
They used to.
incentives, don't they offer no property tax or something? in Florida
yeah, that's
and
part, in
Texas?
some states, there's lower property taxes, things like that, no income tax in some states. Anyway, we'll continue to watch that. How about Haves and One? Sheila, you wanna tell us about your listing right down the street? I saw your sign.
Yeah.
Driving by.
Yeah, so, quick thumbnail, if you haven't seen it yet. 641 First Street West, just a couple doors down. I met the HOA president. It's a small little HOA, there's only like 14 properties there. And the nice part is it's only $85 a month. And they determined because of how it was built, that there's no common wall. That it's actually, they're determining it's a single family residence, it's a townhome PUD. So for loans, that's much better, it's more value. So if you have somebody that wants a 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, close to a town where you can, not that we're gonna say walk, but you're close by. You know, for a pied a terre or wanting to downsize to get closer in, that's where that is. One that Barry had that was just a couple doors down was over $1 million, it was a little bigger property. So in terms of comps or value, I think it's there at 895.
What is the,
895,
what is the HOA, what do the HOAs cover?
the little road there, and they also do the landscaping in the front.
But no building
No,
issues, yeah.
Yeah.
So you entirely responsible for your own building, your own insurance.
correct.
Okay. Gotcha.
So there's that one. There's another one too on Napa Road. I think a lot of you seen it, but if you have somebody that wants to do vacation rentals, you always have to say, of course, the buyer has to apply, but talking to Lindsay, it's in the zone that's approved. They're doing a good business with vacation rentals, just a matter of for their situation, in their life, it's better for them to sell right now. But the tricky part with that one, everybody loves the house and the land, it's the road noise. Vacation rental people don't mind, because they're just there to gather and be outside and enjoy the hot tub. But for a primary person, that's our pushback. And I'm also looking into insurance, because it's one of those quandaries as well. So I'm trying to be proactive on the front side because of how long it takes to find out.
So we talk about insurance all the time, but what is NAR and other organizations for realtors, what are they doing proactively about this insurance thing? It's like it's under the carpet and we all know about it, but we don't hear anything about, well, that possible resolution to tell our people. What do we do? I mean. what do we
Well,
do?
I'm not sure, I know there's been some meetings with, legislators who serve on the insurance, oversight committee, at the state level. And, but you have to remember, insurance is a market rate, market driven commodity. It's not a government regulated commodity. I mean, it's regulated, but it's not, prices aren't set. So, there would be a pretty drastic change for, the government to come in and start mandating the prices of the insurance. They monitor the practice, but not the pool.
It's one of the big.
And the FAIR plan is basically the insurance of last result.
Right, and
Is
there's,
it? No.
not that I don't know if anybody wants to know this, but I've been talking to 3 or 4 different insurance companies and a lot of them are brokers looking at it, as well as personally going through it. And what some of them are saying from seminars they've just recently at, they're hopeful that there'll be some resolution, maybe 2025, 26, but they're having to work with the insurance commissioner because the insurance companies aren't making any money. And they have to be able to at least survive and their margins are really thin. So they're trying to work it out, but they're besides the insurance commissioner who wants to supposedly work it out, it's the risk people that back up the insurance companies that have to be on board too. So there's just multi-layers to it. But even to get the FAIR plan, you have to be rejected and then you have to allow so much time to apply for that. So it's very complex right now.
Yeah.
NPR had a program on this morning and they were talking about that. And saying that the insurance commissioner, that there was pressure to get insurance companies to pick up more properties and be more active in California. Because the FAIR plan is getting overloaded and it's becoming just a giant octopus of insurance that it was never designed to be. It was supposed to be to catch certain properties that didn't make it, and it's becoming a primary organization.
Yeah.
Which is not the intended structure.
And also I read an article that said Allstate was gonna start doing more in the market. So I called one of the primary Allstate people I know, he said, no, it's not true. That they haven't come to agreement yet, that they have to have it come to agreement with the insurance commissioner. And
Yeah, the insurance commissioner does limit the amounts the insurance companies can increase their rates.
Yeah.
So there is a limit on it. And that's why they drop out of the market, because they can't raise the rates high enough to cover their risks.
And
We better have higher rates and still have coverage from everybody, from all the companies participate. You can bring it back down again eventually.
Well, I mentioned this a couple months ago, I think, was that I used to have a policy from Mutual of Omaha. And Mutual of Omaha was a mutual business, so they pooled assets. And then they wrote insurance and then with the premiums, they put them in the bank and then invested them and the premiums usually went up enough to cover the payouts. And that's how the mutual business worked. It was just us all deciding we're gonna pool our money. We'll take insurance and, you know, we aren't all gonna need it, but some of us will. So it was kind of a shared risk situation. And, you know, the corporate nature of insurance came after that. But it's always, you know, you think of Lloyd's of London, it's these, you know, people assessing the risk and being willing to underwrite the risk. Who wrote the insurance on the Titanic and how much did that cost? You know, so. and what was paid out on that loss?
But that was
Raising the rates, they're just getting out of business in California.
yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's a different situation.
Berkshire Hathaway non-renewed me on Olive Avenue, which is not a high-risk fire area at all.
Yeah,
And they, you know, come July or something, I've got no policy.
yeah. Somebody else told me they were facing that down the road too.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's happening all over.
I'll get, I had Krista lined up and she went on vacation, so I'll get her in here to talk to us.
Gary, I had a question.
Yeah,
So let's say I've got a buyer, I wanna make an offer, I look at the listing and there's no zero commission noted. In the past, we were not to negotiate commissions as part of the purchase agreement. Is there, one of
Okay,
these, one of
so
these, one of these new
I
forms?
asked, no, I asked risk management about that, okay?
Yeah,
We aren't asking. The buyer is asking,
okay,
okay? So that's why the forms are set up the way they are. You have a buyer broker agreement that says the buyer's gonna pay you 2.5%.
yeah,
It also has a box down there that says they authorize you, the buyer authorizes you to ask the seller to pay that. That's in the form. So now you write an offer on the property and it's the seller is not offering the 2.5% to you. So you are authorized to take the SPBB form,
attached to the purchase agreement.
attach it to the purchase agreement and ask the seller in that offer on behalf of the buyer, not on behalf of you.
Is there a box or something we check?
Yeah,
Ask the
yeah.
Buyer to pay for the commission?
Oh, yeah.
There is.
Oh, yeah.
On that separate form.
On the buyer representation, broker representation agreement.
No, I mean in the purchase agreement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's at 3G3.
Okay.
3G3, you check it, you fill out the SPBB, you attach it to your offer. The seller's either gonna agree to it or not. But it isn't, that was the distinction. It's not us. Okay, so the rule was if the 2.5% was being offered in the MLS, we couldn't go back to that listing agent because that's coming through the listing agent, right? The listing agent saying, in my listing, I've agreed to pay 2.5% to you, the seller's agent.
Right.
You can't go back to that listing agent and say, no, I'm not gonna show you property unless you pay 3.
Right,
That's between you and that listing agent.
Right.
We aren't doing that. What we're doing is the buyer is asking the seller to do something. So that's how we get out of the middle. Yeah,
I've got a price reduction of $20,000.
yes, business.
70 Timberlake Circle. Like I said, I've been holding it open. I'm not able to hold it open this weekend, but it's a pretty decent open house because it's right on Arnold Drive. So it's really easy for signage purposes. So if somebody wanted to hold it open this Sunday, it's available. And you get some decent traffic, you know, what you do with it is up to you, but you know, there's some good traffic. There's a few other properties or in the adult communities. If you have an interest in the area, it's a way to get started. So if you're
Great.
newer, you know, you want to learn more about your little communities, I can help set you up for that.
Hey, Norm, is the main feedback or pushback to getting the road noise or why?
Well, so far, the feedback on the house is that everybody, you know, likes the house. The
Yeah.
house is decent, the house has got, you know, good reports, so there's really nothing wrong with it. So we're reducing the price as a function that it hasn't sold. I've been on the market for over 30 days, so
Yeah.
that usually means we're up on price. I've taken it down about 4% or something like that in the list price. And we'll see if that's gonna make a difference. I mean, there's a whole hell of a lot of properties with people living on Earl Drive and Wawa. And most of the community of Chanterelle, which was the newest of the 4 adult communities out there, you know, probably half of their homes have impacts related to traffic noise, but they still sell too. So it's just a matter of the buyer, you know, you need a buyer that sees, you pick this house up, you fly it over with Harry Potter and drop it onto the bike path, you can add $200,000 to it. You know, it's a $900,000 home, selling for $699 now. So we'll see.
Okay,
So if anybody does want Ray, wants to hold it open, let me know.
Norm's got an available open house on Temelec if you want to reach out to him. Great. Any other
That's it.
has ones? Yeah.
I've mentioned this before, but I think the sellers are getting closer to being ready. This is a home that was involved in the fire and had some damage from fire, but most of the damage was from smoke. And so the home has been totally gutted and rebuilt, but not finished. It's a substantial contractor project. And it's on about 5 acres or so up on Trinity Road with great views and privacy. And a second little ADU unit. And we're gonna be somewhere around $1.2 million, $1.5 million. For a home that's gonna be worth, you know, $2 million plus when it gets finished, but it needs a contractor. So if you've got an upper end contractor, buyer client, it's gonna be a great project for someone. He's done a lot of great work and it's basically ready for sheetrock. All the electric's been redone, the plumbing's been redone, new septic system's been installed. Spent a ton of money so far, but he just ran out of insurance money and gone to a halt.
All right.
The state financing? The state fixer. Oh, I'm sure, but it'd be construction loan. You know, it's
Probably be a low value ratio, be a long ratio, long valuation.
Also, I think probably insurance. is a big issue too.
Yeah. Try to use something. Okay, anything else have once?
I have in Healdsburg, I still have 9 acres of land ready to be built on. It's at 488 right now, but the seller's thinking about dropping it to 450, but between us, could go a little bit lower. It was involved in the 2020 Walbridge fire. So there's 1 acre on the street side, then the creek runs through it and the bridge was burnt in the fire, taking us over to the other 8 acres. There's 1 small little build pad that had a 2-bedroom cabin on it that's cleared and ready to go, and everything's ready to be built on, but it's zoned RRD, which is Resource and Rural Development. So we can't do any giant houses, but perfect for a cool campground or retreat, or, you know, you can park an RV while you do build little structures. It's a unique property, but it's definitely for a specific build.
whereabouts in Pittsburgh.
On Mill Creek Road, 7,000 block, so it's like about 7 miles up from where West Side cuts off. So 7230 Mill Creek Road, but it's gorgeous. There's 2 natural springs that run year round on the property. There's 1,000 feet of creek, and my girls and I were out there last Sunday, and there's little swimming holes and crawfish and blackberries line the whole creek. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and it definitely needs investment and you know, some time to build. So
It's got a well. The well,
it doesn't have a well. It's got 2 natural springs. Yeah, it needs a lot. The seller is also willing to finance and carry. He's willing to go to 450. You know, he'd carry, you know, a chunk of it, probably about 300,000 of it. Yeah.
As you see, Ali is also licensed. She's been in the nation with us for a couple of years now, and so she does double duty. Staff and agent.
Cool.
Cool. Me and Chelsea have two coming up hopefully this week. So I have one that's going up tomorrow. It's 5060 Warm Springs Road. It's just vacant land. Very limited information. It is a burned property, burned in the 2017 fires. County records are very limited on what they have regarding the land itself when it comes to utilities, the sewer and the water. Kind of been running around trying to figure out what's what, and came to the conclusion with the county that the previous owner before my client decided not to record anything they did when they built the house in 2001. So a little tricky on that. Overall though, it's pretty decent looking. Yeah, so that's just vacant land. And then the other one is, we haven't decided on our price yet. We're gonna get a bunch of inspections done today and tomorrow in Santa Rosa on 2443 Cactus Avenue. Probably gonna be in the low to mid 700s for that one. That one's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. I don't have the square footage off the top of my head right now, but I'm pretty sure it's under 2,000. It's probably somewhere around 1,700. Really nice neighborhood. It's right off of Bennett Valley Road. And yeah, so that one should be Friday is what we're aiming for. Yeah.
Great, great. The raised sign is up on the Warm Springs property. I'd say it's about a half mile to a mile from Arnold.
Is it on the left side?
Before you,
Yeah.
before you hit the S turn at the,
On the creek side?
on the creek side. Yeah, so it's down below the road. Yeah. Looks like a nice parcel, nice big rectangle.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the size of it?
It's just under 1/3 of an acre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the price?
It's gonna, we're going on for 400,000. Yeah. Super motivated seller. He is willing to do up to 40% seller financing as well. If need be. He would prefer not to. He's just trying to sell it.
Was there an existing structure there? So there's sewer or septic and.
There was an
water?
existing structure that got burned in 2017.
Right,
So when I spoke to the county, they gave me two weird answers for some reason when it came to the sewer. They said, we don't have any records of anything, which is unfortunate. The closest thing we have is in 1971, we had clearance that they could install a septic, but they never recorded if they did. There is also public sewer access on the Warm Springs Road as well. So it's either on septic or it's on the public sewer, but they just don't know. So just, they didn't record anything once they built the house.
Yeah, that was a septic that's all, the foundation is taken out as well from the
Mhm.
burn house?
Yep.
So you don't know where septic might have been.
Right, yeah.
well, 1/3 of an acre on the creek, you're
Setbacks,
gonna be limited.
Mhm,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
50 feet on the creek.
Anything else? I've got my quote of the week. This is from Boyd Varty, the Lion Tracker's Guide to Life. Boyd is a lion tracker. Yep. Except that losing the path is part of tracking. Go back to the last clear track. There is information there. Walk up ahead, checking any open terrain and bare ground. Open your focus. Any place you don't find a track is not wasted, but part of refining where to look. Flow for a while on your best guess, alert and listening and noticing. Tracker's Guide to Life.
I like it.
All right. Well, thank you all, and
And then when do we need to get, when do we need to be totally out of the other office?
well, I've got to talk to the landlord today. Oh, by the way, Lori Bremner hasn't been around because her son, who lives in Portland, was in an accident, pretty serious accident. So she's been up there. He's got some neurological damage, and she's providing 24/7 care. He was released from the hospital, but if she doesn't stay there, or if he doesn't have 24/7 home care, then he has to go into a rehab place, which she doesn't want to go So we haven't moved Lori out. And obviously you have a whole lot of furnishings there that we're hopeful a future tenant will be interested in, and then if not, we gotta figure out what to do with them. So, I'll give you updates, but you know, I encourage you to keep moving your stuff out there, because the sooner we do it, the better. We're eventually gonna have to get it all.
Yeah. I left, one or two flyers, flyer holders on the kitchen countertop, if anyone needs flyer holders. And also there's, if anybody does door knocking, there's a box of, clear plastic door hangers that you could put something in if you're door knocking and nobody's home.
Raymond, you still doing door knocking?
I checked with them.
Yeah, I haven't been doing door knocking lately. I've been doing more of my cold calls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, they're there on the kitchen countertop, if anybody wants them, if not, they can be tossed.
for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and on your cold calling, be careful of your, to vet your do not
Yes,
call list, because there was an article in the paper of some, I don't know, it was Keller Williams agent or something, kind of getting in a lot of hot water.
Mhm.
So. All righty, everybody.
Okay, right.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.